Well, the Ad Hoc Committee set up to investigate allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is meeting this afternoon as it also prepares to start its hearings come the 7th of October. Let's now extend a very warm welcome to Prof Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who's the Acting Director for the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at the Nelson Mandela University to further unpack this. So, Professor, it's good to have you with us. So in the previous hour, we're lucky enough to dip in just a little bit into those proceedings of course, the Ad Hoc Committee. And look, I mean, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee was today finalizing its procedural framework, like the potential witnesses that should be called before it. I saw some very interesting names there. President Cyril Ramaphosa, General Lebeya, Advocate Defo Malesela, just some of the few I managed to pick up on that long list. And this set, of course, this is set to take place come the 7th of October. What are you anticipating when they finally sit?
Well, I want to move from the premise that we must bear in mind that the role of the legislative institution, besides making laws, is to hold the executive institution accountable. So the background to this is the press conference that was held by General Mkhwanazi when he laid bare his claims about what had happened from his standpoint. Then I think the legislative institution has a role then to summon anyone and to demand answers. So that's the background to this. I don't think that there is a duplication, because one might argue and say, but what is the point of this if there is a forum that is underway that is meant to uncover the truth about what had happened? I think these are two separate processes, and both of them are needed, because the one that is underway is informed by the constitutional powers of the president. So he has a right to do that. And this one comes across to be more professional, not politically inspired, as opposed to Parliament. Parliament is a political platform. So I just want to clear that that I don't think that there is a duplication. But I anticipate members of Parliament to demand answers from those people that you have mentioned.
We're going to get to the separating of powers, as well as, of course, what powers will both of these processes actually have at the end of these sittings, Professor. Now, here's an interesting take on this committee, Professor. It emerged through General Petronella van Rooyen sitting at the Mandela Commission that, and I quote, the Portfolio Committee didn't act, that she means she's referring to the Police Portfolio Committee, didn't act on that, and that is a failure on their mandate. And she was, of course, referring to concerns that were raised by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. She further stated that if they had, in fact, instituted an investigation or even called the management of SABC to actually come and explain, that would have been the committee actually exercising its oversight. But we know this is the same committee now that will be interviewing witnesses and also determine the outcomes or just action against some of those that have been accused. Should they be found guilty, of course, but this is very serious. Does this make any sense to you? Who then holds Parliament to account when Parliament fails to do so on behalf of citizens?
So that argument that you are invoking is quite symbolic, simply because to me it means that the past is still with us. One of the findings from the Zondo Commission was that Parliament did not hold the executive institution and could not prevent the state capture project. Yes. So it means that history is basically repeating itself, because even in this context, we have a legislative institution that has not done its job. Because Parliament, among other things, does its job in terms of the committees. I mean, it is a powerful organ which has a right to demand accountability. So it's quite sad that there is this scathing attack. And I think it's a criticism which is fair. I don't think that it's an unfair criticism. So meaning that we are not out of the woods yet.
And then, so what happens then when the very same people that should have raised the alarm have not raised the alarm, but now are going to be interviewing people that are part and parcel of the rot within, of course, the alleged rot within our criminal justice system, Professor?
So we've got two separate institutions here. I think this is quite important. You're talking about SABC, in my view, which falls under the executive institution, of course, not at the political level. And then you have Parliament, which is a separate organ, right, in terms of separation of powers. So I think the role of members of Parliament then would want to basically flesh out or tease out, the whole situation in terms of what had happened, even though they fell short of doing that, because had they done something, maybe what had happened would not have happened in the first place, because now the damage is done now. I think that will be their role, but the issues that are happening under SABC, they fall under the executive, and Parliament should all the time provide oversight over these institutions.
Prof, very quickly, these two processes, the Nhlanhla as well as the Parley Ad Hoc that is set to begin on the 7th of October, have long been criticized for various reasons, right? Each mainly on the part of who has what powers, as you alluded to earlier, right? And how will those decisions or actions taken then be implemented? We're now sitting with a situation where even some party members have been fingered. What would then be the just process moving forward so as to ensure accountability as well as restoring trust in these very public entities that are at the center of the scandal?
Okay, Alicia, first things first, I'm not a lawyer, but I think law is the extension of politics, I've got that nexus. So you can't separate them completely. So these are not legal platforms like a court of law where you can pass a judgment and find someone guilty or not. So I think it's a platform just to create a scope in terms of what was found, and that evidence can be handed over to the relevant authorities to then take the matter up in terms of instituting a legal action. But I think these platforms are necessary and they're quite important in terms of producing evidence. And I think the legal institutions can build on that.
All right, Prof, thank you so much, as always, for your input. That is Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who is a political analyst on the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee that is actually, in fact, still sitting and finalizing its procedural framework as they are set now to start their probe come the 7th of next month.